Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Jacqueline Matoza, and we call her the HGTV personality. She's from Battle the Beach. She teaches people how to invest in real estate and also just save on taxes, which you don't often get that in a lot of real estate coaching programs and stuff like that. But we're not a real estate podcast. What I really wanted to know is for you, what were you even doing before real estate? Like your first entrepreneurial venture, and even if it wasn't that, because I do kind of know you already, but kind of can you walk us through what you were doing even before real estate?
Yeah. So my first endeavor would be real estate, dabbling in the entrepreneurial realm, right? You form LLCs, you buy something, and the whole goal is to turn it for a profit. So that was definitely my first. I started investing in real estate at 22, so pretty young in the game, and yeah, it's evolved ever since then. And now I left my corporate job in 2021 and I went full all in, figuring out a path for me. So I decided to go with coaching and education. I feel like the financial literacy in America is really low. And so that was where my passion was. And I'm a CPA by trade. So it just kind of like all works together. And then inherently saving money on taxes, real estate's a big part for the very wealthy. So it just makes sense.
Gotcha. So it
It's like a
was
Venn diagram of money and
right.
real estate.
So I'm gonna work out the timeline. You said you got started the real estate at 22, but then you recently quit your corporate job at 2021.
Yeah.
So how long was it of learning real estate before you quit the job?
Um, I did a lot of BRRRRs in the beginning before BRRRR was an acronym.
Yeah.
So I just bought them to live in them. I lived in them for 2 years. I moved out. I rented them. As I was living in them, I was fixing them up, and then then I just refinanced my money out, go buy another one, and yeah, by 27, I had three doors, and I was in corporate. So I mean, I don't know if you know much about firm life, but you work like 20-hour days. So I didn't have a lot of free time. So it was kind of like I was starting with my homes and then just kind of like rolling them and then turning them into rentals and moving on to the next project. So yeah, my best one was definitely bought in 2011 in the bottom of the downturn.
Oh
So
yeah, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Jeez. So why real estate in the first place? You had a stable job, corporate job. Why even go the route of real estate?
Two reasons. There were two people who really like impacted my decision making. The first one was when I was 15. I was a receptionist at a real estate firm, and this little old lady. I don't know if you've ever heard this story me tell it before, but this little old lady, she just collected mail. I'm aging myself now. Mail cartons of checks, the first through the fifth, and I never understood what she did. So one day I got the courage to finally ask her because I'd always carry the bins to her car. And so one day I was like, "Man, what are you doing? Robbing a bank or something?" Right? I was just making jokes, and she was like, "Oh no, honey. I have a lot of apartment buildings and I just collect checks. This is the only way to go." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so we over time got to know each other. And she's like, "Oh yeah, real estate's the only way. Like, don't waste your time. Just go learn money. Once you know money, then you can do real estate and you'll be fine." So that was my path. She helped me decide my path. And then the second person that really impacted me was my first high net worth individual client at Ernst& Young. Made $30 million. And so going from $30 million, I was doing their tax return and I walked into my senior manager's office. I was like, I mean, I'm new to this. I probably messed up, but I think something's grossly wrong with this. He's like, what do you mean? I was all, well, he's got 30 million of income, but he's only got $1,000 of taxes. What did I do wrong? Something's wrong. And he started laughing. He's like, oh no, he does real estate. And then I was like, break this down for me, right? So we went through commercial real estate, cost segmentation, all of the like big sexy terms. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and get on some real estate clients. I'm going to try to understand this. I'm going to figure this out and get my way out of corporate America through commercial real estate.
That's hilarious because that's something that I'm realizing even kind of not super long ago, but just being around all the people doing real estate
Yeah.
deals is most people are actually doing real estate to just save on taxes. It's
Yes.
all the people who are earning a lot of money and you're like, dude, I don't want to pay these taxes. Like, let's find a way. And like, oh, real estate's probably the way.
It's
Um,
by obligation.
yeah, it's not even, oh, this is my passion. It's just something that I've noticed is that everyone is like, how do I not pay this?
Yeah,
I don't like
there's
this.
That's a great point. So I always tell people, mainly in my real estate programs, also in my finance program, right? Like we talk a lot about what do the rich do to save taxes? Having been in the back of their office and watching their numbers flow through these tax returns. I personally never prepared tax returns. I just reviewed them to make sure my tax planning got done right on their tax return. And so I was more on the aggressive planning side. Most CPAs just like to data enter and like put numbers in, which you can imagine that doesn't sit well with me. I like to think and find loopholes and be creative. So yeah, it's really an overlay of life insurance and real estate. And putting all the deductions into your corporation and having a C Corp that you run in losses in perpetuity, and that is able to be funded in perpetuity in losses because you have real estate, which is cash flow positive tax loss carry forward. So that's really the name of the game, and that's how we would balance my high net worth individual clients.
Gotcha. So I had a question. I kind of want to break it down for, like, I really want to hear the very beginning. So you learned of real estate apartments at 15. You
Yes.
bought the first one at 22.
I bought a condo.
A condo.
Yeah.
So what did that even look like when you were 21, just trying to prepare for that first purchase? What did it look like transitioning from, okay, learned that she has these checks to actually doing it? What were the first steps that you did?
Yeah, I day traded some money.
What?
So
Like on the stock market?
Yeah, one of the guys at the firm that I was working at, we worked like 20-hour days. So every now and then you just kind of get bored and you're like, oh, get me out of here. And you work like really weird hours. So you see each other at like really weird hours. And this guy's literally like, oh, shoot, it's 6:30. I got to get working. I'm like, 6:30 in the morning? What do you got to go do? And he's like, oh, I day trade. And I actually drive a Ferrari, and this job is just for health insurance. And I was like, what? This doesn't even make sense. This isn't even logical, right? And so in my head, I was like, oh my God, this is so bizarre. Like I have this guy, this trust fund kid next to me who has all this money and he's day trading. So he's like, yeah, let's day trade you some money. And I was like, yeah, I want a down payment for a house, right? So we day traded, and then I also had some money saved up from my grandpa. And so, between the two, I went from $5,000 to $30,000 in a year, and then put my down payment on a condo. Condos in the Bay Area are pretty expensive, so
Okay,
sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it was I put a like 20% down. So yeah, that's how I got my first condo.
How long did you day trade?
We did it for 8 months.
And then was it just like, I don't like this anymore? You just stopped?
Oh no, I just bought my condo and then
Oh, it was for the purpose
Yeah,
of
it was for the purpose of my
getting-
condo. Yeah.
That's funny. I had no idea you did that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
I have a wild story all the way across the board. So yeah.
Actually, you know what's interesting? A lot of your story comes from getting the inspiration from other people. Just, oh, you can do that. I can do this too. Is that something you always had in you, or is that something? Because a lot of people, I hear this a lot. They hear success stories, or they see influencers or people online, like, must be nice. It's the must be nice personality. Like, oh, must be nice. Can't be me. But what makes you decide that you can do, oh, that's cool. I could do that too. 'Cause that's not a lot of people.
I grew up fast, and I grew up pretty self-reliant. My parents weren't there really to help me financially. So at 15, I was working, right? And by my senior year, I had 2 jobs, and I was in 3 AP classes, and I had 2 varsity sports. Like I just was always on the grind. And so it was one of those things, like I always knew hard work paid off. And I always knew if you just keep going, you'll figure it out. And I think I had a very different mindset, because for me, it wasn't like, oh, that's them, must be nice. It was like, I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So I'm all in. Why would I not? And I think that's been the difference in my life. Like I've always gone all in on myself. And when you believe in yourself, people inherently believe in you. And when you're confident, like confidence is built by showing up for yourself consistently and making a goal and achieving it, right? That's where confidence comes from. You set a goal, you don't give up until you hit that goal. And people laugh at me all the time. They're like, your goals are so ridiculous and astronomical, and it doesn't make any sense, and there's no way. And I'm like, you know what? Even if I miss the mark, at least I had a goal. And to me, it's not a failure. It's a learning lesson, or a lot of things we don't control in life. Like things happen that are out of our control. And I've seen multimillionaires lose all their money, but they bounce back 5 times faster. Because once you know how money works and you know how money operates, nobody can take that from you. Once you know how to generate money, no one can take that away from you. You can always go back to it. And so it's one of those things where it's pretty simple that way. You know, like you keep life simple, and then there's no more fear, right? Like it's not a failure, it's a learning lesson. I have nothing to gain, everything. I have nothing to lose, everything to gain. You know, so when you go with that mentality, I don't know. And to me, like life's just a game.
It is.
All of us are gonna die.
That's funny. I had no idea you thought that way, because this is something I thought of recently. Is as you develop certain skill sets, I guess, to generate money or income,
Right.
the fear goes away. The fear of like, what if I lose everything? It's like, oh, if I lose everything, it doesn't matter. Like,
Right.
we'll get it back like that. I love that part. So, okay, you bought your first condo, 22. From there, was it just continue your corporate job and accumulate more rentals one at a time? Or was it, okay.
Yeah, so then I bought a duplex, and I lived in one and lived for $500 a month in a 3-bedroom house.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty nice. Yeah, in San Diego, they have a 2-on-1, so it's like 2 separate houses with 2 separate entrances. So one's on the back alley and one's on the street.
That's even nicer.
Yeah, so, and then you have like a nice big car parking space. And then, so you don't have to worry about any of that. And so that's what I lived in.
Okay.
And my entire career, like all my bosses laughed at me when I told them where I was buying and why I was buying it.
Really?
Yeah, and then my boss followed up with, and one day I'll be working for you.
Yeah, there we go.
Because I was willing to make the moves. I mean, it was in the hood. There were helicopters, the FBI. I knew there was a HUD. I knew the FBI was coming. This house was like, the guy bought it on the auction block for $58,000, and he wanted like $350, and I was like $200. I just like lowballed him. I was like, whatever, it's all a game, right? What's the worst that's gonna happen? He'll say yes, and then he came back like $294, and I was like,
you're like, oh.
Should I counter again? Meh. We'll just keep it.
Big discount.
Yeah, it was a big discount. So, I mean, it's kind of, I always tell people, like, if you want this price, half it, like, and then double it, go back and then, negotiate. That's life. Life is a negotiation.
You know what I love about that is, I don't even think you realize what you just said, but it was, you were willing to make the moves and you're willing to sacrifice whatever. Because your bosses or the coworkers at the time are like, why would you do this? You're laughing at you. And I've noticed that too for me in my life, is that anytime I've figured out, okay, I'm going all in this, if this fails, I'm okay, like doing whatever it needs to be done, whether it's going back home, sleeping in a car, sleeping on a floor, like it doesn't matter.
I have no ego. I'm the same way.
Yeah. And so I love that you said that, because a lot of people are like, oh, I would never do that. Well, that's why you won't succeed. You're not willing to put in the work or the sacrifices. So let's talk about now the transition from actually quitting the job, because I'm assuming it was a comfortable job, a comfortable W-2.
Very. That's why I lasted so long.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it was a long time. Why did you quit, and what kind of financial side gigs or income did you have to make the transition?
Yeah, so I overlapped a lot of syndications to grow my cash, and so what does that mean? As an executive in a big company, you get bonuses, right? So all of those bonuses I invested directly into syndications, and I found a team that I really liked. So every time I got a bonus, I just gave them my cash, and then that inherently gave me my 40% back on my bonus that they withheld and corporate payroll. So that was great. And then, I was able to build a structure for a W-2 employee where my effective tax rate was practically zero. I mean, with California and federal, I was paying on average 8%, which is unheard of in California when you're making, tons of money. So, it was one of those things where I was able to save a lot of my taxes through syndications, and I was able to also 2x my money, sometimes 2.5, 3x, depending on the project. And so I was able to build a little schedule where with 50,000 put in, I could build, and with 50,000 put in, I could build more, and then I could put more and more. And so you build that hamster wheel up, right? So your 50 comes back to you in 2 to 3 years. You put it back in, now you've got 100, right? Now you got 150, depending on the project. So I just kind of like built that little hamster wheel and got a little cushion. And then I was off to the races because I got invited to be on TV, and my boss was like, I need you to get a promotion. And I was like, follow my dreams.
The 3% raise doesn't matter anymore.
I don't want a job in this corporate world anymore. Like, I kind of felt it was like do or die, right? Like, Yeah, it was, I mean, it was definitely more than the 3% raise, but yeah, it was one of those things where it was like, do I want to take on more work that's going to take away from my real estate business? Or do I want to, do something else? And so I chose to do something else. And what way to go out of your corporate job, but with a TV gig? That's
Yeah.
kind of like,
You're going out with a blast. Yeah, no, actually, the people listening, you don't realize we have an HGTV star here. But I actually really want to talk about that.
yeah.
So, first off, before I even talk about the show itself, how did you get on the show and talk about the show? Like, what was the
But for the
process?
grace of God,
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. I think some staffing lady, Brandy, she's super sweet. I owe her everything for it. Um, she found me on Instagram. And I think it was through ads for my flipping coaching program because, right, I've been a luxury flipper for over, 5 years now. And I think that's what caught her onto me and got her rolling. She saw my ads. I'm not sure. I never really like overtly asked her, but I was running ads. So I'm going to assume it was for that because she was probably looking for flipping people and then they start to target you for ads.
Right. Okay.
So I'm guessing
And
it's for,
she reached out to you cold.
yeah. And I thought it was a joke. I was like, oh God, this spam artist, like what a joke. And then
Right.
she sent me her website and I was like,
Interesting.
and then she's like, can we video chat? And so I knew she was credible. And she was like, hey, I'm in Atlanta. We're on this site. Can I call you? And I was like, huh, okay. This is
Wow.
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you get on the show. Is it okay if I name the show, or is it it's
Yeah,
already
yeah,
done,
yeah.
right?
It's
Okay.
done. Yeah, full disclosure.
Okay, yeah, it was Battle of the Beach, right?
Yeah.
And once, like, what was that even like being on the show? Did you have to like pack up your life and go there for a bit? And what was that like?
Yeah, you turn your life off for 6 weeks and you shoot for 6 days out of the 7. They said it was in Galveston, but I was in Surfside, Texas, which is, if anybody knows, you're like on the Gulf Coast in no man's land. Like the closest Home Depot was like 25 minutes. The closest grocery store is like 10. So you're like, 10 to 15, and that's like a small convenience store gas station. Like a Walmart or anything of substance would be, another 25 minutes. So it was pretty isolated. They do it, I think, probably by design so people can't, paparazzi, blah, 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 all that fun stuff that comes with filming for TV.
Okay, so what was the premise of the show? What was your role?
Yeah, it's a competition show. So they gave 3 couples a house, identical houses, identical floor plans, said flip it, make it worth the most. And that was what we did. So it was just a value add. And we bought them at like 5. Don't quote me. I'm pretty sure it's on the TV show. It's like somewhere around 515 is what their value was when we started. And when we ended, it was like anywhere from, they never told me my final value, like 868, I think, is where we ended, if I had to guess. The other people won on heads and beds, which to me seemed like a health and fire safety hazard. I was like, I don't know if I want that many people in a 3-bedroom. It just doesn't seem safe. And 2 full baths, that's it. So 11 people, that's a bit much. It's a lot of usage on your house. So for me, I don't care vacation rental or not. I don't think I'd want that many people in.
Right.
But that's just my personal opinion. But yeah, so it was fun. It was just flipping, changing the floor plan, and trying to maximize your value and design and decorate the end.
Did it have a pretty big impact on, I guess, like as far as benefits from being on the show? Because this is something that I've been curious about,
Yeah.
talking to other people. But was it worth it? Or
For me, I think I was just in such a weird place coming out of COVID, and I was like, I just kind of need something that's fun. I need to just go take a break from life, and I've been ground to the pulp in my corporate job, working 20 hours a week or a day, and I just kind of need a break. I need a reset, and I think COVID did that for a lot for us. We all kind of took those moments of, what is this all about? And that's when I realized, like, this is all a game. Like, we are all going to die. We can't take any of it with us. So what does it matter? So, like, let's just go have fun, So I called my contractor and was like, hey, you want to be on TV with me? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I would love nothing more than to, like, laugh all day with you. And we did. Like, it was great. It was fabulous. Like, we had a blast. On the show, it's funny because, right, you're at the mercy of the editing. So that part is interesting. There was a lot of hate mail. A lot of people, yeah. I was surprised, like, loyal people to certain personalities, which is fine. I mean, you expect it, right? And the way they edit it is nothing like what you film. I think that's the other thing that was very interesting to me. What you see on the front end is not what's on the back end. we were laughing nonstop. There was very little tension in our house. I think
Right.
we were like 2 flare-ups and that was it. And you're on a pressure cooker, right? Like 6 weeks to
Right.
flip a house,
Yeah, that's a lot.
you know.
Yeah, everything
And
has to be bright.
yeah, and it's like a full gut. It's not a
Wow.
light job.
Right.
It's like this is probably like a 60 to 90 day job, and we're squishing it
Yeah.
into 6 weeks plus TV camera time interrupting.
Hmm.
So that's very disruptive. But for me, I just went in with it with the attitude of like, Jacqueline, you're not gonna have a meltdown. It's not worth it. This is a TV show. We're gonna have fun with it, and we're just gonna like let it be and have a great time. And you know, your brand and your name and your marketing is all what you make of it, right? Some people don't make any money off of it. I've been currently asked to be on 2 other TV shows. I'm trying to be very selective because it is very disruptive. And then, you know, I've been thinking about building my own. After being on TV, I thought about it and I was like, you know, I have the best idea ever and no one has ever thought of it and I can't believe it. So I've been, you know, just toying with maybe, maybe not, I don't know, you know, so it's one of those things where you're like, what do I do? You know, what do I do with my
Right.
life? Like, where am I going? I have no idea. But I think I've been such a type A control freak for so long. It's kind of nice not knowing and not really caring where you're going.
Right.
It's a little, I don't know, I'm coming up on 39 this year, so I'm like, you know, I stress so much for what? Like, I know I can always pay my bills. I always figure it out. I know I'm always going to be fine. I've made it out living off of like $1,200 a month. So, like,
You can do anything.
right, right. Like, once you know how to make money, you can always fall back. So, yeah, my family's always like, you're incredible. Like, we have no idea how you figured this all out. And I'm like, it's just, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's well, once you learn how to make money, but also once you learn how to live off nothing. I think
Yes.
that combination, it's so deadly.
Lethal.
Yeah, you can do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, I was a broke college kid, and then when I went to corporate, I never changed my lifestyle. I lived in the same condo. In fact, if anything, I cut my expenses because I moved into a duplex, and I was like, 3-bedroom house for $500. This is pretty good.
Yeah, this is great.
And I just saved my rent checks. I never touched them.
Wow.
They came in. I didn't use them against my mortgage or anything, and I just kept going like nothing happened. And you know, yeah, I think there's very simple financial tricks you can do to
Yeah.
cheat yourself out of money and like lie about how much you're making, so you learn not to adjust your lifestyle. And right, like Robert Kiyosaki, it's not how much you make, it's what you keep.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious from the show itself. Is there anything that you learn in terms of I don't know, production, TV that you're utilizing now in your own content because you make content yourself?
Yeah. Is there anything from the show that I utilize for content?
Well, like the lessons, because you said they made stuff more dramatic and stuff, and the editing, and I don't know, because
I don't talk about the show much.
Yeah.
I mean, right? It makes sense though. You're at the
Right.
mercy in reality TV. You're at the mercy of the editors. So what you see is not actuality. And most people who are on TV, you've got to have thick skin.
Yeah.
And you've got to be okay with it. And you've got to know who you are, you know, and I think no one else, like no one goes to be famous without knowing. And the ones who don't know who they are have the public meltdowns. So not trying to do that, not trying to put myself in that situation. I feel like I'm pretty clear about who I am and what kind of a person I am and what I stand for. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's, you just gotta plow through it. And like,
Yeah.
I don't use the show much for content. More, I just put it up as like, hey, I've been on HGTV.
Just a
It gives you-
credibility factor.
Yeah, it gives you credibility for sure. You can go and see my work. You can see how, you know, it's very clear on the show. We were the ones who decided to put the half bath in, and everyone else went underneath our house and was like, "Oh, there's a new pipe. What's that? That's a toilet line pipe. Oh shoot, they're putting in a bathroom." You know, panic. So then everyone else had to do it, and I think it showed. It showed at the end. You know, you could see our floor plan, our bathroom, like a big person could fit comfortably in it. You know, everyone else's was like a closet that they recycled, and you're like these little dental sinks, and I'm like, we have a full friggin' vanity in ours. Get out of here,
Right.
you guys! Like. Space plan better, guys. Our bathroom, our second bathroom was massive compared to the other ones because
Right.
we moved walls, right? We moved the whole kitchen wall forward, and everyone was like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, why wouldn't you? You know, it doesn't align with the living room wall, and it's on the same wall. It's kind of awkward to me.
Right.
So I'm like, pull this pocket out. We got a bathroom, and we can move the bathtub in there. And then that opens everything up, which I think to me, being in a cram bathroom is terrible.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. No, me too. So I'm kind of curious, what's the next steps for you? What do you see now? Because, you know, you're living comfortable, you're happy, you're always now, you're starting to get comfortable with just kind of just going with the flow. So what's the
Yeah.
next goal?
You know, I'm working a lot with entrepreneurs right now. They're my focus, people who are in real estate. There are a lot of wholesalers who make a lot of money and are paying taxes. So I'm helping them do tax planning. I'm helping, people bulletproof their finances. That's really my passion after COVID, watching so many mom and pop shops. That's really why that was another motivator for me to leave. I was like, this is just so unnecessary. Nothing that rich people do is anything fabulous or fantastic. The only difference is they zero out their tax bill, right? Donald Trump, $750. It's nothing fancy. It's not hard, right? And they leverage two main mechanisms, right? So if you can get somebody life insurance where they can borrow against it, they can use it for real estate investing, they can use it to, if they get a medical chronic, terminal, critical, they can borrow against it to pay their bills so they don't have to sell their house or disrupt their income, right? Nothing's worse than getting sick and then you lose your income generating source, which is you because you're in a hospital bed and then you can't pay your bills. That's a double whammy, and 80% of Americans go in bankrupt because of medical bills.
I didn't know that.
So it's one of those things like for self-employed people, like getting them the right health insurance. I have a great health insurance guy. I have a great whole, team behind me at Proxy that do assets under management, lending. They do everything. So I feel like I'm really valuable in the real estate space, helping people get where they need to be. If anyone's paying, $12,000 or more in taxes, we can help them. We can wipe it out. We can make it a tax deduction. Just might need to change your legal structure a little bit around, and that's about it. But it's not expensive. It's really not. It's not hard to do. It just takes time. And so it's one of those things where that's where my passion is, and that's where I'm at, and it's fun. It's fun. I had a dentist or a doctor. He came to me, and he was like, yeah, I really want to start buying some real estate. I want to learn how to do this. Can you help me? And I was like, well, let's talk about why. Why do you want to do this? He's like, well, I'm getting tired of working the night shift in the hospital, and I'm really tired of having to grind it out. And if I could just have $13,000 of income coming in a month, I could, do Doctors on Borders, and I could travel more with my wife, and I could have more freedom. I could do part-time day job rather than night shifts full time. And so it was really, he's like, my kid's growing up really fast, and I'm missing it. I'm missing it because I work all night. I come home, I go to take them to school and go to sleep. Don't see them, and then I'm back at the office. So, we built a little game plan because he has high net worth, right? It's not hard to get into syndications and commercial, and that's really like our clientele really is like the W-2 person who wants to save on taxes. Bring them in, like, let's do this. Let's rip it. Let's get you money back in your pocket, right? He's like, oh yeah, I'm paying like $125,000 in taxes. I was like, oh my
Oh
God,
man.
that's like a house.
Yeah.
In some places, a condo, right? Some places, it's nothing at all. But yeah, and so it's substantial enough for me to be like, okay, I know this is the plan you want. Are you open to feedback? Are you open to a different plan? We work together, right? And we put together a new plan for him, and his entire attitude and view on life, and it was so doom and gloom and like, oh, I hate this grind. It reminded me of myself in corporate. I was like, oh my God, another day, Sunday blues. And yeah, having to watch that shift and getting that pleasure of like seeing that cataclysmic shift. And we're actually in the process of closing on his first property. And, we built this strategy for him, and it's working, and him watching the traction and the rubber hitting the road on a commercial deal is exciting, and I know because of his network, the minute we make him some money, it's going to be all holds bar, and like the ones who would get hurt the most are the lawyers, the doctors, the dentists, the orthodontists, the, cosmetic surgeons. They're high net worth, right? And you don't learn business in those schools. That's the school of the hard knocks, and it just drives me nuts because we're taking away that middle class. $3.3 trillion of the Treasury Department's money is made off of individuals. And when you reverse that out and you look at what's C corporations who make trillions of dollars a year, what are they paying in taxes? $343 billion a year is going to the Treasury Department. So you do the math and you can very quickly see like all this talk you hear CPA say, oh, you don't want to get double taxed, have an S corp. No, that S corp goes on your individual return. You're like sticking a dagger in your own bank. You don't pay double taxes because your C corp's running losses, and you have the best protection in a C corp from liability. And then asset management, we help people who, getting married and they're like, oh, I don't want to lose all my money in divorce. I heard you can help me. I don't want to lose anything in bankruptcy, right? Like I want to be like Donald Trump, just bankrupt this company, move on, and I was laughing. I was like, yeah, it's, it's pretty telling and it's pretty interesting to see like people want to learn. People want to do the right thing. And people are like, you know what? It's no longer Democrat, Republican. It's now us versus the government, I think is what people are realizing, right? And our middle class is shrinking. So that's really where, my heart and soul and passion is. It's like, let's bring back the middle class. Let's give back the money. Eventually, the government's going to have to do something if enough people catch on and do it, right?
100%.
And so why not? Why not you?
Yeah, no, I like it. Seems like you have a massive passion for one, just helping people with their taxes and bringing back that middle class. So I love that mission.
Yeah, I mean it's simple, right? It's really not hard, and yeah, it is. It's like it's just disappointing to see like mom and pop shops closing during COVID. I mean, I lived in the middle of Mountain View, California, and I was watching all these stores closing, and it was like we have Google, Apple, Facebook, all these massive companies, these like God bless everybody rallying to save the coffee shop, the local coffee shop, right? And I'm like, man, people are so passionate about a coffee shop, but like not these other stores, and they're just closing, and it was like heartbreaking. And listening to the coffee shop owner, I was like, man, if I could help these people, like some people don't want the help, and it's wild to me how we've built the financial system. It's all by design, right? Like CFPs learn the stock market and that whole SEC, securities, bonds, blah, 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 mutual funds. And then you have like wealth managers who they're like, okay, we'll add in businesses and real estate, right? So they kind of go a little bit further, but like nobody looks at it from like a holistic approach of like reducing the tax bill out, and that's like, I've had a lot of family offices calling and asking for help. So it's fun. It's different. It's like, let's like break the institution, man.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing behind it is the institution is schools, colleges, they're all designed to create to create workers, people
yes.
who don't care about reducing tax bills, just keep the society just running a way, not the best way. So
Keeping the rich rich.
yeah, that's all it really is. So I'm kind of curious, outside of the reducing the middle class, if you had just one message to share to anyone, like your main message, you're like, this is my main message, this is what I want to get out. Could be business, could be real estate, could be anything. What's the message?
Just start.
Just start.
I
like it.
Just do it now, and the sooner, the younger you are when you do it, the happier you're going to be later.
Yeah, I like that.
I look back and I'm like, man, I should have started sooner. This corporate job, man. And I still get phone calls. People are like, can you consult? Can you do this? And I'm like, it's so hard to say no because it's so much money, right? And it's always there. It's like the devil tempting me. But I built a really good career, and I think the one thing people always say is like, I'm always honest and I'm always transparent and I have nothing to hide. If people ask me for my opinion, I'm like, are you sure you want my opinion? Because I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you like it or not. And I'm not the best at delivering it. So I'm just going to say how it is. And people are like, give it to me,
those are the best friends too, who do that. I'm like, just tell me.
It does not work in the corporate space. Oh man, it's brutal. It's brutal. But yeah, I'm the bureaucracy. I don't play politics. I'm like, look, every day when I wake up, I want to look myself in the mirror and be proud of the person I am and know that I'm doing the right thing and that I'm not hurting a soul, and like if I hurt them, it was unintentional and I didn't mean to. And in which case I tell everybody, just be honest with me. Like nothing I do is intentional. And I think having that kind of character and that kind of like way of operating, I can always get a job. I can always call people and like you were saying, right? I can always go back to my job and get a job. I still get phone calls. People are still reaching out, asking me, hey, you want to be the head of tax? And I'm like, oh God, you're just trying to promote me. I'm good. Yes, I've ran some massive companies. I probably could. But it's one of those things like when I look back, I don't ever want to have a regret, and, I look at my family's generation and they're just in corporate too, like my bosses. And I'm like, man, you guys are just rot with regret. And I think having that always in my face, it's been one of those things where it's like, life is real. You only get one chance and it's a full DIY project. It is the hardest DIY project you will ever do. And the biggest battle is between your two ears.
Yeah. And I think that was interesting because you talked about how just being around people can really just bring you down when they're full of regret, they're rotting, and it affects you.
It makes you
And
sad.
yeah, and I think a big thing for anyone is if they're in a spot where they're around people who they don't like the feeling that they get, it's probably the wrong spot.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, like we talked about this, the naysayers, the people who put you down,
Mm-hmm.
um, oftentimes it's because they want to protect you, and they want to not see you hurt and they want to shelter you. Like God bless my child when I have one, like there will be no protection on. I'm going to go and fail at like 5. And let's do this mindset training. Let's
Right.
go, little girl, right? Little boy, like, let's do this. Like, I don't think enough of us are taught persistence and tenacity. And, I'm like a pit bull on a rabbit. When I put my mind to something, I'm like, I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to commit. I don't have commitment issues, but so many people, and I think I don't have commitment issues because I believe in myself, but so many people don't.
Mm-hmm.
They don't trust themselves. So if you don't trust yourself, you can't trust anybody, which therefore means you shouldn't be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Mm-hmm.
relationship until you work with everything starts from us. And it took me a long time. It took me a divorce to realize, like, I got married and 8 months later was like, we either need to go to therapy or this needs to end, one or the other. I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. And it was the hardest moment, right? Admitting defeat. Like that was the hardest. Like I was like, dude, everyone just bought me all these nice gifts and like spent all this money on me and this is awkward, right? Like, right? And then, but it was the wrong move for me. Like I knew it was, and it was okay. Not that he's a bad guy, it just was not the person for me to build a lifetime with. We wanted different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so obvious to me in our arguments, to your point, right? That you're like, sometimes you just gotta like cut your losses and move on. And from that day forward, I realized, like, how did I even get into this situation? And then you start to think through it and you start to go through yourself, right? And the decision making that got you there. And then you're like, okay, this is a battle from within,
Mm-hmm.
and no one can fight it but me, right? And I think that was the moment where like I really started working on myself and I really started, thinking, I mean, business is business. I've always been good at it. Like money, I'm not emotional about it, right? Like it is what it is. It's frustrating sometimes and it's glorifying some other, but all in all, it's like you really got to work with yourself. And like if you're insecure, if you're looking for validation, turn your phone off. Turn your phone off, right? Like do the opposite. I tell everybody, let's play the opposites game. My coaching, let's play the opposites game. What is your inherent inclination to do? Oh, I'm going to go drink and party. I'm like, sit at home by yourself.
Yeah, now I'm trying to think of what my inclinations are. Like, well, a lot of my inclinations just work, so I'm like, maybe I shouldn't.
And work is a distraction.
It can be,
Work is
yeah.
addicting.
Yeah.
Work is validating. Work is,
funny.
And I think that was one thing. I was overworked in my job, right? So I kind of like took this like 2-year hiatus of like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go film, and then what am I going to do with my life, right? And it legitimately was a hiatus. It was like, who am I? And where do I want to go? And what do I want to do? And how am I going to make a difference? Because like so many of us, we work to achieve. And it's going to sound very simple. We work to achieve, but nobody like happily achieves. It's a very different mindset. That's why so many famous people commit suicide.
I see what you're saying.
Because if they don't get that next role,
Yeah.
who are they? Oh, I need to go do more drugs.
Okay, that's so true. A friend of mine, I had a conversation with him recently, and we're talking about he was going through a struggle and he's now overcoming it, just personal. Like he's trying to do more things for himself. And he told me that the question he asked himself was, who am I without this thing? The main thing that he was. And then he was like, you should ask yourself that. I'm like, who am I without what? Like without, I don't know, the real estate, without the content. And then it makes you really think of like, oh,
Yeah.
just because I'm going after this achievement or success doesn't necessarily mean I'll be any more fulfilled, doesn't necessarily mean that I'll be happier. It just means that it's something in your life that's big, but you don't know how important it really is. So I think that's fascinating that there's a recurring theme that I've just noticed with the past couple weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. And, my content manager, she was like, you need to talk about this. I don't think you've talked about it. And I think I couldn't talk about it for a while, but like I was clinically diagnosed depressed at 36. And that was when I was leaving my corporate job. I was starting to make the decisions and the moves. And it was wild because 2020 was like the hardest year of my life. And I was 36. And it was one of those things where it was like anything and everything that could have gone wrong happened. Nothing I controlled. And I just remember for the first time in my life, I looked at my now ex-boyfriend and I was like, I, for the first time, understand why people want to get an AK and blow up a school. Like, they want people to hurt as bad as they're hurting. And, like, not saying I'm going to do it.
Sure.
I just, for the first time, I've never ran depressed. I'm always anxious, right? You're either on the depressed scale or the anxious scale. I'm, like, anxious. I'm like, let's go, let's move. I can't sit still, right? And it was fascinating because, like, so many doctors were like, no, we got to medicate you. We got to do this. We got to do that. And I'm like, no, man, like, what? I mean, I was so flabbergasted at how it was going down. And people were just like, no, the longer you're depressed, the more likely you're going to stay depressed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, our bodies are very resilient and they're very good at healing themselves. And I was like, no, this is mindset. I need to make changes. You get depressed when things are not the way you want them to be, right? I was working at Gilead. We were working with selling remdesivir around the world. And, these emails you get because people look you up on LinkedIn and see you work there. They're like, hey, can I get this drug? My husband's dying. He's 34. I have 2 kids. His respirator's failing him, right? And I mean, it was flooding in during 2020. And I was like, whew, like this is like life. Not only do I have my own life stuff going on, luckily, no humans in my life died, but all these other humans are dying. And my 2 dogs, which were my little kids, were gone, and they died 3 months apart. But you go through that process, right? And it makes you stop. It makes you slow down because you're like, kind of like what we were talking about, right? Like everything is going the opposite of what I want it to do, and I can't control anything. And I had to really work on my control issues and my mindset around control and my mindset about my life has always gone like a stock market, right? And right now I'm going this way. And this is the first time I can't control it. And that surrender, oh man. Like I smile because it's so beautiful to learn to surrender. But ooh, was it hard? It was one of those things like think as an entrepreneur, you really need to learn to like delegate. That takes a surrendering to control, right? And that is easy for me because my corporate job, running departments, that wasn't an issue for me. But, I had to learn that at a really young age or I was never going to survive in my accounting job. And so it was one of those things like, I think that's something entrepreneurs really need to work on, like surrendering and knowing when to cut losses. Like those would be my 2 things if I could teach an entrepreneur what to do. Don't throw good money at bad. Cut your loss. And like control what you can control. You can make the decision to stop it, right? And then secondarily, surrendering to control.
Yeah.
Like, and that's hard because most successful, like you and I, right?
Yeah,
It's like
hard.
I knew exactly what your house was gonna look like. I always love guessing, but I'm like, nah, he's definitely this kind of person. And of course,
you could picture
meticulous, of course. Why? Because my house, like people come to my house, they're like, wow, the only thing you have is like a big pile of papers on your desk. I'm like, yeah, it was all last week's mail for all my companies, But like, yeah, it's one of those things like, it's funny, right? Like there's a certain personality that takes to succeed and you have to train yourself into it.
Yeah, and I think it starts with just doing the little things correct or all in. Because a lot of people think, like, oh, how do I do this big thing? Is well, get the little things right. Do the things that you promise yourself every single day. Okay, but I do want to challenge you, and because you're a friend of mine.
Yes. I love it. I love a challenge.
You say that the passion of yours kind of lies within helping people with their taxes, whether it's entrepreneurs, reducing middle class. But I honestly did not see your eyes light up until you started talking about like the holistic healing, the mindset, the stuff like that. And so now it made me think, I'm like, is that really your passion or it sound like even relationships, when you talked about that you lit up. And I don't know, do you think when you talked about your tax stuff, there was no light up, there was just
It's
education.
tactical.
It was
Yeah.
tactical
Yeah, it's a duty. I feel like I have a duty to people for sure to share my
because you
knowledge.
have the knowledge.
Yes.
Do you th-
Yes.
do you think you would be any happier doing something income related to the holistic healing, the mindset, the coaching, that kind of
We
stuff
just
instead?
launched it. Have you been looking at my social
You know,
media?
I swear I haven't. I have not. I just think like based on how you're
Oh my God, that's
talking.
hilarious. I'm like, you and my social media content person. Yeah. We definitely, my business coach, my social media content person, and I made that decision in Bali. So every year in November, I take a trip by myself, and it's always a retreat of some sort to work on myself. I check in on the year, what went well, what didn't go well, what could I have done better. And it's just a moment for me to pause and turn everything off. And I try to go where I don't have internet. Insert like middle of no man's land, Mexico 2 years ago. And then this year I went to Bali. And I just decided, like, since leaving corporate, like, I need to check in with myself more because we don't, Americans as a whole, I wasn't born here. I am American. But as a whole, we're so busy doing, we're so busy achieving to be happy that we don't really slow down. And I think, yes, I 100% am launching a mindset program, helping people get over their hurdles. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into myself and my mindset, my mental state therapy. I've done all kinds of therapy, EMDR, parts of memory. I've done, NET therapy, a lot of trauma healing to put away my past because I was tired of it being in my present. And I can happily say for the first time, like, I feel like I'm totally at peace. And I had to go after my depression. I was like, okay, these things are haunting me and they just need to go away because they can't be relived. But I am keeping them alive, right? And when you realize that you're doing it to yourself and no one else is, like, never will I be a child in my parents' house again. One, my parents are divorced. Two, I'm a grown ass woman. So why, why am I still talking about it? Why is it still in my fears and in the subconscious of my mind? Like, let it go. It is what it is. Like, it gave you data for you to learn to become this killer person, right? And so for me, like, thank you, and I can finally get to the paradoxical shift of my life where sometimes the hardest things you've ever gone through in your upbringing and all that rejection and abandonment, those are your freedom points. You just need to learn how to make a catapult out of it. And I think I've always been really good at overcoming and finding the silver lining and moving forward and just being like, meh, but it still lived deep in my subconscious. So yeah, mindset for sure. Like, if I can give that gift, it was something we talked about in Bali. My coach was like, dude, you're ripe. You've got, like, you came in at the firm at 21. I think I was just about to turn 22 when I started. And, you were like out the gate running, just running, right? At 28, you were running a double public. So public in France and public in America, international tax department. Like, you can't get there. You can't get there without a mindset, right? You can't get there without tools that you clearly, my family is not wealthy. I would not call any of them rich, right? I'd say, average Americans, right? Struggle to pay their bills, struggle to make ends meet. So for me, it was like, how do I not be them? How do I give myself financial security? I'm no longer going to rely on my family and my parents. It's unacceptable. It's not an option, right? And so for me, it was one of those things. It was like, I've got to get myself out of this. So we did. We launched a mindset. If you go on my social media, you'll see it says real estate, which includes my decorating. We've consolidated topics because so many people like ask me, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm like a wealth manager. That's what I call myself. And people are like, yeah, but you do real estate. And I'm like, yeah, because that's part of wealth. And then they're like, you do like financial services. I'm like, yeah, that's part of wealth, like holistically. And then we added mindset because it's something I'm very passionate about. Like, I didn't get where I'm at on my own, and I had a lot of hard conversations with a lot of people. And in college, I remember a VP, fun story, a VP of supply chain management at the company I was working for, and he'd moved from Illinois to San Diego, and I was just interning, and I was in this Korean company where you couldn't talk to people and you had to stay in your lane, and you didn't talk until you were talked to, and it was just culture, right? And was born in Europe. I understand cultural differences. But he was white and he didn't believe in those. So he would come and talk to me, and he'd always call me Smiley. And I'm like, man, if you saw where I was on the inside, like, I am struggling to get through this this private school education. And I'm struggling to pay my bills. I'm struggling, like, right? But like, he's the first person who like threw it in my face, like, but you're always smiling. Mm-hmm. Like, you're always smiling. Your inherent nature is to be happy. So don't worry about it. And I was like, right? So those little conversations, they're like data points, right? And if you put them in your pocket and hold them in your heart and use them as your North Stars, like, you always, if you don't believe in yourself, listen to what people believe in you, right? And like, I was like, yeah, I am a happy person. I am a very artistic person. I am a very emotional person. Like, I feel so deeply, which is probably one of the reasons I've kind of like held back from mindset, because I'm like, while I'm dealing with my stuff, I want to clear it out and make sure I can be a good coach and a solid person for them. I can coach business all day. I can talk to you about your mindset and your business. But when you get to like relationships and like the root, like, I don't want to be crying with them.
Okay.
So I was like, I gotta, and I really was like, I did get certified ontological coaching. I did do that in Bali. That was part of Bali. You have to do your own work before you can finish your own certification. So I am certified. So yeah, it's but for me, that's more like, 80% of your life is mindset, right? Yeah. It's like they say 80% of your physical physique is diet. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like, I always tell people I'm coaching in business. I said it this morning on one of my calls. I was like, look, you're not going for 100%. You're going for 80.
Yes.
Forget the rest of it. Go after 80. Go after 80% of your biggest problems. And then the next year, go after the next 80. And the next year. And inherently, you're whittling it down, right?
Yeah. And often the 80% of your problems are like 20% of the things that you're doing, like the most important things. But it's funny, I actually did not look at your social media, so I'm happy that you're making that transition.
Yes.
I think you're going to be happier just focusing on that, because you say that you have the duty to teach people the tactical stuff, the tax stuff. But I think you also now have the duty to teach people the mindset things that you've gained. You've spent hundreds of thousands or thousands of dollars on mindset and honing in on yours. And even if you don't think yours is perfect, it's a lot further ahead than what a lot of people are. And that's something I've noticed with the coaching. And this is why I think you'll really like it, is that it's really, for me, because my coaching style is a lot of just be vulnerable. Like, tell people, no, I did this. Like, this is what happened to me. You can choose to do whatever you want to do with that, but that's what happened to me. Yeah. And it helps give proper perspective. Yeah. So I'm happy you made the shift. I'm very pumped now.
Yeah, because there's hurdles, right? It's the same in business with revenue. There's hurdles and you have to make changes, right? It's the same in your life. You know, like, if you're stuck at manager and you want to get to senior manager, that senior in front of that manager, it carries a lot of weight in a big corporate job, right? And so it opens a pool of who I can help, like, not just entrepreneurs, but like people. I've been in the corporate job, right? Like, I figured out that maneuvering that ladder like that. Like, I maneuvered it, no questions asked, no problems. Did I do it beautifully? Probably not, given I wasn't sleeping. Definitely had my meltdowns. But, I think all in all, people could always say, like, the merit was there, the work was there. She's always going to get it done. She's reliable. She's trustworthy. She's going to keep the charge going, and that stands for a lot. That stands for a lot in any arena, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're, working in a corporate gig, and I think so many people are just afraid of the funniest things. Like, I had someone tell me the other day, like, I'm afraid to work a lot of hours. I was like, what's going to happen to you?
Like, what's the worst? Like, why are you afraid?
I know. So when I hear people's like fears, like, to me, I now am at the point where I find humans very funny. Like, their behaviors and their fears and their things. And I'm like, this probably was me at one point. Yeah. But like, I look back at my younger self and you just kind of like laugh. You're like, this is life.
I see why your friend called you Smiley. So hearing just people, I don't know, because it's something I notice whenever I talk to someone who has a very different mindset than me, whether it's like not as positive or something, I catch on right away. I'm like, ooh, either I don't like it.
The frequency, because you're tuned into the emotional space.
I don't like it. Like, let me go away or not have to deal. So for you, your first reaction as you describe it, just like, he laughs, like, that's funny. Like, why is it like that? For me, it's kind of different. It's like, Ooh. I don't-
I'm inherently a curious person.
Yeah.
This is another thing I had to realize and accept. Like, I'm just so curious. And I think that's part of my success. It was always like, why? Why are we doing this? And I remember my mom being like, because I said so. We're done answering the whys,
Yeah.
right? She was like explaining to me the science of why sky's blue. Like, but why? Why do atoms refract, Mom? Right? You can imagine, like little Jacqueline. And I was like, why, right? And then we moved to America when I was 5, right? And I was just like, why are the grocery stores so big? Why are people so angry? Why? You know, my mom's like, you're exhausting me, right? But I think having that curiosity, right? Like in real estate, like why? How do you do it? What do you do? How does it work? Blah, 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 right? You go through, and the more curious you are in nature, I think the more successful you're going to be, for sure. I hire on 5 traits. Curiosity is one of them. I don't
What are the
even really
others?
hire for my technical.
Well, yeah, it's because you can always teach technical to someone.
Absolutely, yeah.
What are the other 4? I'm curious.
Yeah, so are they trainable,
Okay.
which is different than coachable?
Wait, what's the difference?
So trainable, I'm teaching you technical. Coachable, I'm giving you like personal feedback.
Okay. So
one's on the job and one's on you.
okay. So is coachable another trait?
Yeah.
Okay. So trainable, coachable.
Like some people, you give them feedback and they're like, they start crying.
Yeah. Oh no,
They're like,
I meant a trait
you know.
of your 5. Trainable and coachable.
Yeah. So trainable, coachable.
Okay.
Are they curious? Are they persistent?
Okay.
And are they ambitious?
Okay.
What is it? What is their goals? And their goal could literally be like, I don't want to work here. And I'd be like, amazing. As long as you got a goal.
Right.
Because people, like 80% of people don't, like 85, I think it came out recently. 85% of people don't have a goal. I can't imagine. Like my whole life's like goal, get to this one, get to this one, get
Right.
to, and like as a joke, I used to always tell people, yeah, I'm not leaving my corporate gig until I get a TV job. Like it was a joke. And then literally I was like, well, here's that day.
Wow. I didn't know. That's some powerful stuff, actually.
I actually told them I was retiring my CPA job by 40. So that worked too, 4 years early.
There we go.
Yeah. So, you know, you set goals and, you know, I was like, I'm going to retire by 40. And people were like, what are you going to do? I'm like, what I want to do. I don't want to work because I have to. I want to work because I want to. And that's a very different mindset, right? That's like now I'm happily achieving rather than achieving to be happy, right? And I think this really, my coach honed in on this in Bali and like shredded me apart for like 10 days on this. Happily achieving, like stop achieving to be happy. It's not working, right? And I was like, I know it doesn't work. So then why are you still going on? You know, and it was just one of those moments like that do or die moment, right?
Yeah.
It's like either I surrender to this and accept, like there doesn't need to be another goal.
Yeah. So it was more so, was it like a shift to just be happy with the process and the journey and like the things you're doing, or like?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was really weird. Like I needed my coach's permission to let it all go. He's like, none of it matters. And I was like, I know it doesn't. He's like, so then why do you keep carrying it on? And I was like, because my family does. This is what we do. We harbor. And I'm like, and then I literally remember this quote I've always lived by. When bitterness is at port, happiness docks elsewhere. So like, I'm doing this too. Right? And then it was literally like a light bulb, like light switch, swish, done. It was
Funny.
that simple. It was like one conversation. I got shredded apart. And I was like, he's like, you just need to learn to surrender. Surrender. You know, this isn't the right thing. Let it go. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. And like that mindset and that like permission to live that way from someone I really admire. I was like, dang.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful getting permission. A lot of people kind of know what they already need to do. Sometimes they just need permission. They just need to say, no, this is right. You should do this. I think with your curiosity, it also is a sign of no ego, because I see myself as a pretty curious person. But at the very beginning of, I guess, my entrepreneur journey, I had an ego, and I was very afraid to ask because I always wanted to feel like I knew what I was doing on top. And even my first mentor called me out. He's like, dude, you like do everything right, and then you get stuck, and then you'd stop. Like you wouldn't ask me, and you just try to like do stuff. Like just ask people first. And it was always ingrained after that point. Like if I'm stuck, just who do I know that I can ask for help? So I love your story overall. Last thing before we hop off is, where can people find you and how can they help you? This is your chance to pitch anything you want.
How can they help me?
Yeah.
I'm not here to be helped. Yeah, so In my social media, Instagram, Jacqueline Matoza, you can go there. You can find a big, long highlight about real estate, what I do, mindset, finances, money, my story, a little bit about my story. We're still building it out. It's still fresh. We've got to film a lot of content. But yeah, basically, I can help people start getting into syndications and building a free cash flow outside of your day job. I can help you, with your mindset. I can help you with, flipping. I have a flipping program. I have a wholesaling program. I have a finance program teaching you like how to bulletproof your finances in your life from any tragedy and anything, and how to not pay taxes. I think those are two things that are so sorely missed. If you don't have a lot of money, I have entry-level memberships, monthly subscriptions to get you started. It's the same, it's less pared down, and it's literally like lessons out of my courses. So I don't cheat anybody. There's no upsell. Once you take my course, like I'm done. I'm not here to like upsell people. That's not my jam. My jam is to download my brain into people and get you rolling. So that's basically what I do. In real estate, I decorate. If you want me to come decorate something, I work with some people on Airbnbs and multifamily and, all kinds of different fun things. But yeah, I mean, I'm here more to give back than to take. So if you feel like, something I said resonates with you on mindset, something I said resonates with you, I've been on a couple of other podcasts. So, I think each one now I've done a lot of real estate. So thank you. We're not talking about real estate. That makes me happy. I too get kind of,
I know, it's too much.
right? You're like, I do this all day. So yeah, I mean, I'm just really here to help people. I want to give back. I want to help other people achieve their dreams and their goals. So, by all means, I have a great sales team behind me ready to make anything happen and slot you into the right program that's the best fit. So, all of those links are on my page, and rock and roll, guys. Like, I always tell my team, let's go. Like, let's make it happen. Let's make your dreams, my dreams, everybody's, for me, this is just fun, and I want to help people. And unfortunately, people have to pay attention. That's what I've learned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really true.
Oh my God, isn't it? Why?
And the more they pay, the more attention.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's weird.
Isn't it? Like, people ask me all the time, like, why do you charge? And I'm like, because otherwise you won't show up.
If you say free, they're like, nah, it's not worth it. It's like, okay,
yeah.
it's $1,000. Maybe it's 20,000. It's like, okay.
They know it's always there, and they don't have to really commit, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that is like, I don't know, not to like harp, but I feel like that is something that's so pervasive in our society, the inability to commit. Like, what's going to happen to you if you try something, But all of the rest of your life, you're going to be thinking like, what if? Mm-hmm. What if I had done that? Exactly. And like, nobody wants to live that way. I don't.
Yeah, 100%. Me neither.
I'm like, I don't want to be on my deathbed looking back like, what if?
Right.
Like that's not a good feeling.
100%.
So yeah, I'm kind of like, all right, let's not be that way. So if I can help other people, really reach their dreams, that's what I'm here for.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah. I'm sure the audience will appreciate it. And thank you so much for being on. It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. That means a lot. And if anyone wants to reach out to Jacqueline, I'll put her Instagram link in the show notes below. But thank you so much for listening, as we have Jacqueline Smiley Matoza. Peace.